we are located in the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. We respectfully acknowledge that the Williams Treaty First Nations have been stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters, and that today remain vigilant over their health and integrity for generations to come. We are all treaty people. Hello and welcome to my presentation about The Land as Our Teacher, a digital story narrative. My name is Kate Taylor. And welcome to a walk through Nawautin Nature Sanctuary, located on Lake Ontario, but not too far from Cobourg, Ontario. This is a place that is really special to me because throughout the last year, I've come to Nawautin just to find peace and to settle my mind, and also really enjoy the quiet. So this is Rosie. She and I come out here and we watch for beaver and salmon and geese, and we just notice how the animals respond to seasonal changes. Nawautin has offered a great deal of peace over quite a difficult last year. Observing the patterns of the water, the animals, and the trees has taught me how to practice mindfulness outdoors. And this is just a map of the quite small area. You can see there's some trails around, and we just tread lightly and walk the nature area. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about water in this area. At Nawautin, the seasonal changes are shown by the land, the animals adapting and working together. Each time we come, there is a small difference, just to let us know that time has passed. I'm grateful to this small, peaceful space for offering clean water for us to swim in the summertime. At Nawautin, we find different bodies of water that are attached to one another, with small streams and Lake Ontario interacting with each other, which is very special and sort of speaks to the energy of the space that we're in. One thing I'd like to share is that because of this nature sanctuary, I've learned that in Nawautin, the water that you can see there, that I know as Lake Ontario, is called Nigani Gichigami, or Leading Sea. And I learned that from the Decolonial Atlas, which I was able to find online. Here are a few nature photographs I was able to take of the animals in the area. So part of practicing mindfulness to me at Nawautin is being aware of myself in the natural environment. When I take note of myself in this environment, I know that I am not alone. Throughout the seasons, the animals are adapting and changing. I follow their lead and allow myself to adapt to my new environment, whether that's being in the natural space or whether that's taking on, lots of new challenges that I didn't necessarily see coming this past year. This practice allows me to build resilience and to come to terms with plans that have been changed or been put on hold. These animals survive by following their instincts and following their nature. I think that if we take a little bit of time, we have much to learn from their ability to adapt. Which brings me to the idea of seasonal changes in the land. So I feel that in my years spent in lockdown and in this area, this sort of idea of lots of change is reflected in the series of nature photographs I've taken over the last while. This year has had a lot of time indoors, relationships, work, and school moving completely online. And when I take a break from the technology and get outside and come to this really special place, I find time to think and time to be at peace. Going to this nature reserve means that I'm getting outdoors and I get to take a little bit of time to think about my own well-being and mental health, and think about the big picture in the natural environment, but also in my own life, instead of just focusing on the next trip to the grocery store or email to reply to. So in this walkthrough, I hope to show that I am only one visitor to this area. I think I've tried to show that by keeping as much of the photograph taking up the screen as possible, and then just keeping my own words and thoughts kind of smaller on the screen so that you can still get the idea of the land. Um, because I am just one visitor, I respect the seasonal changes in the space by treading carefully around the new growth in the forest and down by the water, and knowing that have the responsibility to preserve the beauty and the natural space. One part about Nawautin that is in this geographic area that we're in that is incredible are the rocks that you can find along the shore. Um, so not only are they really diverse in color, as you can see from this picture, but there's also lots of other things to find on the beach. So we find fossils, we find brightly colored rocks, we find beach glass, and unfortunately we also find quite a bit of plastic. By picking up the plastic, we try to give back to the place that gives us so much and that we come to so often. Creating a safer environment for the many living parts of the nature sanctuary is just a small way that we can, help the land out a little bit. On the rocks, we are reminded of how living and non-living things come together. When we are walking along the rock beaches, I notice how the size of the rocks changes depending on the wind and the waves and the day that we're there. So the smaller rocks are able to come to the surface and to the shore when the waters are calm. But when the water is really choppy, we have these really big rocks that get thrown up from the bottom of the lake. And this reminds me that there is constant change and movement along the shore, quite similar to how there's much movement and change in our lives. Um, so the sky along the stretch of beach is a different color every single day of the year. So it's the sun, the clouds, and the water make these incredible combinations, and I find a lot of peace in being able to document the changes and to take photographs of the different colors I can see. Um, Often the sky can be filled with birds. They interact with the seasonal changes I was talking about earlier by showing their migration patterns and by adapting and changing and leaving for the winter. Um, I love watching the birds because they work together to find their destination, and each bird finds its own place in the formation, and they work together to accomplish some pretty incredible feats. And here at Nawautin, the sky reminds me to be at peace with change. I practice mindfulness by counting the colors I see and taking notice of the new weather patterns that accompany the changing of the seasons. The dense cedar forest at the nature sanctuary is so thick that it can actually block out the sun, while the trees that you can see in this photograph, they're sparse and leafless. Changing in the shore and the sand means that the trees are uprooted sometimes, and then they fall over and begin to decompose. As we walk along the beach, Rosie and I find driftwood that has come from other beaches and floated towards us, and that sort of reminds us that we are we are just one small area, and there's lots of other things that are coming our way and finding their way to us. And watching the life cycles of these trees always reminds me that there is movement in nature and something that comes next. The trees remind me of a community because they grow together and support one another at all stages of their life cycle. So I would really like to thank you for taking the time to come along this nature walk with me through Nawautin. I think that as I continue to reflect on what I've learned from the land here, I will grow to understand and also appreciate this environment further. I think that as I've told you, there's lots of little ways that I find to try to help out just a little bit. So this space has offered me a lot of peace in quite a tricky time, and I really thank you for this opportunity to share what I have learned over my last year living in this area. I will continue to support the environment here by keeping it clean of unwanted plastic, and just ensuring that when we visit, we treat the area with the utmost respect. And I'd just like to share my sources with you just from Coburg City Council. I use their land acknowledgement there at the beginning. And then also the Decolonial Atlas, which I used to learn a little bit more about the words used to describe this area. So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen.